In a previous video, we looked at how to launch Google Expedition Tours. Now, let's spend a little bit more time looking at the three different options available to us when we go to launch a tour. So when we look at this screen, again on the iPad, I can see there are three options that we saw before: View, View and VR, and Guide. Let's start with View. When I tap on View on my iPad, you can see that I get a screen that comes up with an image. Now, one thing that I do notice about this is that as I move my iPad, the image doesn't change. However, if I touch and move the image on my iPad, it moves here. So this offers just a way to guide. You'll also see on the iPad in the bottom right-hand corner is some text. Now, if I tap on that text and slide it up, it gives me a script that I can read that's pre-created for this particular tour. You'll also notice at the bottom there are some targets. These are specific things that were talked about throughout the pre-created tour. If I simply tap on one of those options, it directs me to where that is in the picture. And if I happen to move away from it, you'll notice an arrow appears helping me go back and find it. Now, if I want to look at a different scene in this tour, a different picture, all I need to do is tap on the text and slide it to the left, and you'll see the other images, the other scenes show up again with their script and their tour. Great. So that is looking at View. Let's hop back to that initial screen. So the next option that we have is View in VR. I was really happy to see this added into the app. You'll notice that when I tap it, it's going to tell me to place the screen into a viewer. So let's see what happens here. So there's the screen that says to place this into a viewer. And if we're using an iPad isn't going to fit inside that cardboard viewer. But let's turn the iPad anyway just to see what happens. So the first thing you may notice is I'm getting this interesting view here, and that view is really set up for the cardboard where it has the two images in it. But that's not how we're going to be using this. So if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a little icon as a square. If I tap on that, that toggles to this single screen viewer, and you'll notice the icon is now changed back to being a cardboard viewer. That's how we can switch between a cardboard view and a single view. We prefer this view when you're dealing with an iPad, but already you notice as I move the iPad, the image moves. So this is that virtual reality. It's the same thing I did before. I'm viewing the tour, but I'm doing it in virtual reality. So it's almost like this iPad provides me a window to another dimension, which is really cool. Now, you may notice in the center of the screen is a small circle. That circle acts as my mouse, if you will. As I move around, you'll notice that different things become available. And when I tap on a screen, the thing that dot is on is what I'm going to look at. So for example, if I tap on the dining room table or the dining table, it gives me that option. I can close this out and I can look at some other items. You'll see when I look down, this is where I get the ability to see all the different scenes that are there. I can get information, meaning I can toggle that little bar on and off, right? And I can also, if it's equipped, I can enable the narration or the sound associated with this scene. But again, to go to the next scene, I just tap on the next arrow and it transports me, there we go, to my next scene. Very, very cool. All right, let's take a look at the last option we saw, which is Guide the tour. So the last option that we have available is Guide. Now, the View in VR is great if we want students to go and explore on their own, but if we want to do it as more of a group trip, Guide is the way to go. You do have to be signed in order to guide a tour, and I happen to be already signed in. So when you click on Guide, you'll see that this number comes up, and it's just a way of making sure when your students follow you that that's who they're really looking for. From the student side of things, once this is running, they will tap on the app, they'll go to class, and they'll find you as a guide, and they'll click on your name, making sure that the number matches up. That's how they join the tour. Once that happens, you can say, got it. Again, you'll notice as I move my iPad, the image doesn't move. It's back to that side scrolling where I can control where I'm looking. But for my students, they will be able to move around and look around this scene on their own, but they're kind of locked into this screen. I'm guiding them through it. The important thing to do is in the bottom right-hand corner, you want to tap that Start button to start the tour. Great. From here, I can read through that script like I saw before. I can click on the targets and it will highlight that for my students or give them an arrow for where to look. And just like last time, if I want to look at a different scene, I simply tap the orange text and slide it to the left, and it brings up my other scene. Now, what's important is just because I'm looking at it doesn't mean my students are looking at it. In this tour mode, in this guided mode, in order for me to transport my students there, I have to tap on that orange Start button, and that will change the scene for my students or for my participants. So when I take a look at it, those are the 3 different options available to you in most VR tours. There's View, where you're just viewing a static image and you swipe the screen to move. There's View in VR, which is kind of a step up. It allows students to self-guide themselves through the tour, but it gives them the VR experience where they can move the screen and it'll move the image. And then there's Guide, where it's a non-VR experience for the guide, but the participants do have that VR experience. Really, really awesome stuff. So there you go. That's the tours in Google Expeditions.